Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for checking out the video. This is going to be a little bit different from what you might expect. There are already like 1.5 million tutorials on YouTube on how to use a vocoder, how to set up a vocoder. I'm actually going to be showing you how to do it without a vocoder plugin. At the same time, I will be illustrating the fundamentals of how a vocoder works and why a vocoder sound happens at all. So just to give you guys a quick demo, this is not done with the process that we're going to do. This is just general vocoding. I'm going to show you guys a little setup I've got here. So I've got both my modulator signal and my carrier signal being sent right here. I'm actually going to rename that. I don't know why I called it MIDI because MIDI is not audio. I'm going to call that carrier. That's exactly what it is. And I'm going to color it appropriately. I'm just going to give you a quick demo. I'm going to play this and then I'll show you the vocoder and then we'll move on from there. So here's the sound demo.
All your bass are belong to us. All your bass are belong to us.
I thought that was like an appropriate thing to record. I thought it sounded kind of funny. So let's actually open up the vocoder. Nothing fancy. This is Fruity Vocoder. This is like the standard vocoder that's come with FL Studio since like version 7, 8. It's been around for a long time. So as you'll note, I only have the wet signal coming out. I've got the highest filter order. I've got 32 bands and I'm doing some high passing from 250 hertz down. You'll also notice I've got some pretty narrow bandwidth, less than 1/4 of the width that is available. And I've got the release time pretty tight and the attack time is quite long. It's 170 milliseconds. So I'm letting a lot of attack kind of come through the vocoder rather than have a very tight attack. And that's something you can kind of mess around with whenever you're using a vocoder, try and get more or less intelligible results depending on what the aim is, what the goal is. But regardless of that, let's disable the vocoder. Actually, you know what? Let's just get rid of it because that's going to be the very next step is to create a vocoder. So we may as well do that now. What I'm going to do very quickly is I'm going to reset the hard panning because I did have the modulator hard panned left and I had the carrier hard panned right. We're resetting them. Both of them are in the middle. I'm going to solo them. We're going to hear them one at a time. This is the vocal recording by itself. All your bass are belong to us. All your bass are belong to us. Okay. And this is the carrier signal. All right, fantastic. So these are the different signals that we're going to be working with. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hard pan them again. Now, the way that I used to do this before I used Patcher is that I would actually set the vocoder up through the channels in the mixer. And let me tell you why that's not a good idea and a gigantic pain in the ass. So the number of channels you're going to use are directly a factor of how many bands you want your vocoder to have. And you need a separate set of bands for both the modulator and the carrier. So even if we were doing an 8-band vocoder, you would need 16 channels. 8 for the modulator and 8 for the carrier to have an 8-band vocoder. You can understand how that very quickly becomes needlessly complicated and quite impractical. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to do it all in a single insert, and we're going to use Patcher. So before I proceed, I kind of thought it would be a good idea if I show everybody the presets that I've created first. So I'm going to start with the biggest one. And as you can see, this is literally insane. This is just the 16-band vocoder. I did decide to not do the 32 because, as you can see, this is insane. And look at these bands. So each one of these is like a doubling and sometimes like an in-between value. So like in the first one, it stops at 60. The next is 60 to 120. Band 3 is 120 hertz to 240 hertz, and then on and on and on with this. These values had to be like manually inputted, and that was on all 16 of these bands and all 16 of these bands. And I mean, you can see the routing and the routing over here. It's too much for 32 bands. And this is how it sounds. I'm just going to do a quick sound demo.
All your bass are belong to us. All your bass are belong to us.
Not bad, eh? So that sounds pretty good to me. So I'm going to get rid of that. Actually, before I do, I better make sure I save this preset because I don't remember if Okay, I did. Yeah, 16 band. All right. Whew. Can you imagine? Create all this and then get rid of it. Oops, I forgot to save the preset. Oh my God, I jump off a bridge. All right, so let me pull up Patcher again. And this time, oh my God, I didn't even need to do that. I'm going to go to the 8 band. There we go. I don't know why it squishes it out like that. Oh, okay. So it does keep the positioning. I just have to stretch the screen back out again. I'm going to check the 16 band and see if it does that because I haven't closed it and reopened it yet. I just made everything and then saved the preset. But yeah, so this is the 8 band. Here's what it sounds like. Not bad, not bad. Let's close that out and let's just change the preset to the 4 band. That's what I'm going to start with. Yeah, and it's not going to sound all that impressive. Yeah, figures. So let's go back to the 16 just to make sure everything's appearing as it should. Okay, now I'm going to squeeze this all in. Okay, and I'll blow it back up again. Good. So it kept all my routing. It kept all my routing positions. And all of this is why I don't want to do a 32-band vocoder. So I hope you guys understand. Anyway, these are the presets that are going to be downloadable in the video description. Here it is. This is Patcher. Behold Patcher in all of its glory. Doesn't look like much, but I promise you, this is an immensely powerful plugin. For those of you that don't use FL Studio or may not be familiar with what exactly Patcher is, essentially, it functions as its own mixer in a way. You can put whatever plugin you want in here, right? And whatever parameters are in that plugin, any of these can be set to take an input from another parameter in a different plugin. You have infinite routing capabilities. You can route audio as audio is being routed right now. You can route MIDI information if you want to do that, if you need to route MIDI. The possibilities truly are endless. This is a very, very powerful plugin. And it's one of the main reasons I love FL Studio because you can do so much with it. So just to demonstrate before we start, you guys should make sure you're doing the same thing. Modulator and carrier are both being sent to this same channel, channel number 1. That's where the vocoder is. So both of them, channel number 1. And both of them are hard panned. Modulator is panned hard left. Carrier is panned hard right. So what I'm going to start with is stereo imaging. That's very important. That's always going to be the first step of doing this without a true vocoder because that's what vocoders are doing too, to a degree. Vocoders they're technically dual channel. They can take a left channel, they can take a right channel, which is how the effect works at all. That's how you get 2 separate signals into them. I'm actually going to put these maybe a little bit closer together, and right from the get-go, we're going to organize these so that we don't lose track of what's what. So remember earlier, I said that in the actual channel properties, the modulator is already panned hard left and the carrier is already panned hard right. So we're just going to reflect that here. What we're going to do is we're going to isolate each element because when the audio comes in from FL Studio, this is whatever audio is routed to the channel, all right? At the point of the insert. So since the plugin is placed in insert number 1, this is the first area where we're going to see any effect. So the modulator and the carrier together are both being sent to these individual plugins. And the reason we're using stereo imaging is because we're going to use this to isolate the signal. So because left is modulator and right is carrier, this is modulator. So let's remove, right? We're going to completely remove the carrier. And what we're going to do is we're going to feed the modulator back into the right channel. So the right channel was, oh, no, didn't mean to do that. The right channel was previously over here, which was the carrier, but now it's just a copy of what's in the left. So this is a multi-mono kind of setup here, where we're just copying the information of one side, putting it into the other. And we're going to do the exact same in the opposite fashion over here, because the carrier is all the way right. So we're actually going to get rid of the left channel, which is the modulator, and we're going to feed the right channel back into the left channel. So this is carrier, this is carrier. All right. So we're on a pretty good start. Let's get these closer together, actually, so we have more space for the vocoder bands. And this is where things become a pain in the ass. We need a lot of these. We need 8 of these. So like I said earlier, this is going to be a 4-band vocoder, okay? 4 bands, which means we need 8 because we need to split both the modulator and the carrier into their own respective bands that are basically going to be the same band, just so you guys are aware. But we're controlling different aspects. Each band serves a different purpose. You'll see why whenever I actually have this routing done up in a way that makes a little bit more sense as you follow along in the video, and it'll start making a bit more sense. There we go. Well, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves just yet. Image line, if you're watching this, please fix the sensitivity of the cursor inside the patcher window. This drives me nuts. It was just fine with FL Studio 11, and then when 12 and 20 came along, it's like they're trying to lock to an axis, and then I don't like it. Just put it back to the way it was before. Please. This is a pain in the ass, and I hate it. Anyway, so we're going to route our individual modulator into each of these different EQs, and I'm also going to route the carrier into each of these EQs. And it's really important that these are fully parametric EQs, because those are the only type of EQs that are going to give us the controls necessary to do this effect. So I'm just going to name these in a way so that they're organized. Oh my God. Sorry about that, guys. I get a little bit distracted when I'm trying to do one thing, multiple things at the same time. I have ADHD. It's really hard to focus. So you're going to have to bear with me here, guys. There. So as you can see, all of these are organized. We have modulator band 1, modulator band 2, modulator band 3, modulator band 4, carrier band 1, carrier band 2, carrier band 3, carrier band 4. So the information of each of these EQs is going to be exactly the same. And because of that, let's actually go right to the preset. So I believe it's the fourth one that I've saved. Yep. That's a band limiter. There we go. There we go. Now, a lot of people actually say band pass filter, and I don't like that terminology because an actual band pass filter has generally a gigantic pass band, and that's not what we're doing here. We are literally band limiting. We're limiting the upper and lower bounds of each band, so band limiting. All of those plugin presets are the same, right? Each one of them are the same. We're gonna make sure that the settings of each individual band correspond to the next. So band 1 from the modulator will be the same as carrier band 1, and modulator band 2 will be the same as carrier band 2, and so on and so forth. But before we get to that point, let's start with the controls. So what we're gonna need is an envelope follower. Now inside FL Studio, that would be the Fruity Peak controller, and we're gonna need 4 of them, just 4. And we got the last one here. Look at that, perfect. And you know what? We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna route these. There we go. Right from the get-go. I'm just going to get them a little closer, make it look a little nicer so we have a bit more of a cleaner workspace here. Next up, we're actually going to go with a volume control. So I'm going to go with Fruity Balance. And we're going to link all of these. Perfect. So Fruity Peak controller is linked, Fruity Balance is linked, and here's the difference between this setup and this setup. The bands of the carrier are going to be sending their outputs, their audio outputs, to the channel output. So when this says from FL Studio inside Patcher, what it means is that the input right here at the start of the signal chain. And when it says to FL Studio, it means the output from that same spot in the signal chain. So the input of insert 1 and the output of insert 1. That's how this routing works. So in a vocoder, the audio you're hearing is actually from the carrier, not the modulator. The modulator is not contributing any audio to the actual signal, although many vocoders do have the option to mix some of the modulator back into the output signal, but that's not what's creating the effect. So these peak controllers, we're just going to leave as is. I'm going to name them mod peak. Well, actually, let's call it envelope 1 because that's what it is. It's an envelope follower. So just going to name each one here. And I'm going to follow suit for the volume controls of the bands for the carrier. Let's go ahead and we're going to call that car vol 1. And we're going to follow suit with each of the other ones as well. I didn't mean to do that. I hit enter too fast. So what a vocoder is basically doing is it's going to have the sound split up into individual bands. Now, right from the get-go, I'm going to turn this into a low pass because that's what band 1 needs to be. I'm going to bring this right down here, and we're going to go up to 320 here. And the thing is, this is band 1 from the modulator. We need to do the same thing to band 1 from the carrier. So again, get rid of the high pass filter, right? So it's only low passing. We're going to go up to 320 as we did with the first band of the modulator, and we're going to copy these settings. I'm going to go to 320 here in band number 2 of the modulator. So you know how earlier band 1 stops at 320 hertz, right? And band 2 starts at 320 hertz. You don't have to have band 2 start at 320 hertz. You can pull this back a bit and have like a bigger gap, right? A bigger stop band, or you can extend it and have a wider pass band. It's up to you guys how you want to change that, and it will impact your sound. You can get clearer results. You could get muddier results. It really depends on how you want to mess around with those, what you're going to wind up with. And that's the point I'm getting at here, is that you can control that on a per band basis. Very important. So I went to 320 and I ended at 1280. Let's do the same thing for band 2 of the carrier. We're going to start at 320. And we're going to go to 1280. Perfect. And we're going to go to 5120. Come on, give me 5120. Oof, that was tough. The sensitivity is all over the place. And as you get higher up in the frequency spectrum, frequencies tend to get closer and closer together. So it can be a bit of a pain in the ass when you're trying to get a very specific frequency. All right, 1280. Time for 5120. There we go. All right, and now for the final band, thank God it won't be as hard. We're actually going to get rid of the low pass filter. So we only have a high pass, and it's going to high pass at 5120. Just like how the first band is low passing at 320 hertz. So for the final band in the carrier, we're going to match that. So we're going to get rid of the low pass. We're going to keep the high pass, and it's going to high pass at 5120. So just to make sure you guys are aware, band 1 of the modulator looks exactly the same as band 1 in the carrier. Band 2 in the modulator looks exactly the same as band 2 in the carrier. Band 3 looks exactly the same as band 3. Band 4 looks exactly the same as band 4. That's important because the information that's going to come through here, the audio information, that's what's going to be controlling the volume output of these bands, and that's what creates the vocoder effect. So to get started, we are going to arm the inputs over here of all these volume controls for each band, and we need to make sure that we're controlling the volume parameters. So we're going to go inputs, parameters, volume. Now you'll see this little input here opened up. We can send the information here. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to go inputs, we're going to go parameters, we're going to go volume. Then we're going to go inputs, parameters, volume. Then we're going to go inputs, parameters, volume. Now we need a way to send the volume from each band here to the volume control of each band over here. So we're going to go outputs, we're going to go controllers, and we're going to go peak, because the peak is the envelope. That's what's going to be controlling it. So outputs, controllers, peak, and then outputs, controllers, peak, and then outputs, controllers, peak. Now, some of you may be wondering, hey, wait a minute, why didn't you just modulate the volume controls of the carrier band right here? And the reason why is because they only go as low as -16 dBFS. They don't go any lower than that, which means we're not getting in true silence. We're just getting a very quiet signal. You need these bands to be absolutely silent until the corresponding band from the modulator receives a signal. These cannot be doing anything while that same band is receiving signal. Otherwise, the vocoder sound is not going to work. So we're just going to route these properly. Here we go. We're going to route the peak information from the envelope from band 1 to the volume control input of band 1 and the carrier, right? So it's basically just take the red circle and go to the next red circle. There we go. So all of these are routed properly. We've got the bands with the proper band shapes, and I'm going to show you guys the sound right now. This is going to be vocoding. Let's take a listen. Now, it doesn't sound particularly clear, it doesn't sound particularly good, and that's because there's only 4 bands that we're splitting the spectrum up. If we wanted a more accurate recreation of the signal, we would need to create more vocoder bands. And I don't expect you guys to just follow along with what I'm doing here. So as I've noted, I will have the presets of all of these different vocoder setups available for download in the video description. Let's take band 1, for example, of both modulator and carrier. So in band 1, let's hit play. Watch the activity happening here in this band. Right? All those changing amplitudes across the spectrum, those changes are what are being used to control the volume output of the same band from the carrier. So that same band that covers the same spectrum, a same area of the spectrum, is not getting any information as long as this one's not doing anything. But as soon as it does, whenever we start getting these white lines of activity, those white lines through this plugin are controlling this volume here. Right? So we take the entire frequency spectrum, we split it up into individual bands like this, and we control the volume output on each band of the carrier by matching that volume for that band to the volume activity of the corresponding band of the modulator. And that is how a vocoder sound is produced. Now, remember how earlier I said that you guys didn't need to start the low boundary of the next band as the same upper boundary of the previous band. You could have a wider stop band if you wanted. You could have a wider pass band if you wanted, and they will all impact the sound and the quality of the vocoder. So you can get clearer and more intelligible results by messing around with those settings. And not just where the pass band and stop band is, nor their width, but also by controlling the tension, right? And the decay time of the envelope follower. So let's take a look at the signal from band 1 as it comes through the envelope follower. We'll check out the envelope, right? This is the envelope. Let's change the tension and the decay. And you're noticing I'm changing the envelope while I do that. And it is changing the sound. It changes how this reacts, because remember, this reacts based on the information that comes through this peak controller. So you can do all sorts of crazy stuff by controlling just those parameters alone. So just the width of each of these bands and where they stop and where they start can be changed for a dramatic change in sound. The tension and the decay time of the envelope follower can also be messed around with for a clearer sound or a different sound. But also, more importantly, you could move these volume controls out, and you could put some processing in between the band and the volume control. You could put a compressor or a saturator or a distortion plugin right here in between these two. So this band has distortion on it. You could put a chorus plugin between this band and the volume output. So this second band here has a chorus effect right here. You could put a phaser on this one or some reverb. Like, the possibilities are endless. And the more bands that you have, the more of this per band processing you can do. So it kind of serves two functions: to show you guys on the fundamental level how a vocoder works and functions, but more importantly, to introduce you guys to the possibility of per band processing in a vocoder to get a much more controlled, much more refined, potentially, sound out of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for sticking it out with me to the very end. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you learned something new. So you guys have a great day, and stay safe out there. Thanks very much for watching.